we're going to see how to save the player information in the database so that even if he uninstall the game and reinstall it, he still has his info right back, and you can also save in between session any information you need for him, like whatever he bought in your game, whatever DLC he has, and everything like that. Just a reminder that we have a Discord channel. The link is in the YouTube banner, where you can get help if you need help with anything in this series. Let's get started. Now we're going to create our databases. So we're going to use Atlas from MongoDB, which is an online service where they manage your database for you. So it allows you to scale up, scale down, and not have to worry about maintaining all of this. And they have a free tier. So what we're going to go do is you're going to go to mongodb.com/atlas/database, and then we're going to create a free account. So we can just do try for free. I already have my account, so I'm just going to sign in. Once you're logged in, you're going to get that kind of interface where in the deployment section, you have database. And on there, you can start and build a database. So for us, we're going to go with the free tier. We don't need anything. You can choose a provider of your preference. I usually use AWS since it's the default. Pick a region that is close to you. For me, it's this one, the US East one. There's a couple others, so you can choose one that is close to you. You can name your cluster. So me, it's going to be like project community. And I'm going to hit create. So here they're going to ask you how you would like to authenticate your connection. If you know how to set up a certificate, it's better because you can have like a rotation of certificate. But for us, we're going to use a username password. So we're going to go and create one. And then you can also just use that button and then copy it. Yeah, that's going to be what I'm end up choosing. So I'm going to create the user. So this user already exists because I already have it. So let's go tutorial. And then auto-generate one more time, copy, create. And there we go. Now I have my user, and I can edit it and I'll be able to connect with it. Where would you like to connect from? For now, it's going to be a local environment. So you can say add my current IP. Your IP is going to be added, and then you're going to be able to kind of connect from there. My IP was already added, so I don't need to do anything. So you can do finish and close. Now we're going to go into our backend project in the requirement.txt, and we're going to remove some stuff. So these four ones, which are markup, Jinja, it's an interest, we don't need it for now. And we're going to remove those. I just want to keep Flask for now. And what we're going to do is, since we use Atlas MongoDB, it means we use a MongoDB database, which means the data is going to be stored as JSON, and it's a non-relational database. We can't make links in between what we store, but it gives us a lot of flexibility because it is schema-less. That means like we can change the schema from one document to another, and it doesn't really matter. The database is not going to enforce any structure. So it gives us the opportunity to iterate faster whenever we want to do change to the schema, or when we have not yet figured out our schema, or even when we do updates, we can do like different schemas for different versions, stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty useful. So in order for our code to communicate with our freshly made database, we're going to need some libraries. So it's Flask, Mongo engine. We're going to use version 1.0.0, which is the one that it's going to install. And we're going to use a couple of other things. So flask.env, which is going to be the version 0.1.2, and python.env. There you go, which is going to be 0.14.0. So this library is going to be used to communicate with our database, and these two are used to store passwords and everything in a way that you don't push them to your repo, but you have them locally, and then whenever you deploy, you have kind of these .env file in your folder, and they contain all your passwords, stuff like that, configuration. So we can go here in our terminal here and do pip install, and it should install all our dependencies. Sorry, R, I think, and it's requirement.txt. Yeah, sorry. So those are already, did I save? I did not save, sorry. We're gonna rerun that command, and it's gonna install everything we need. Now that it's installed, we're gonna go ahead and go into here, the game service, and we're going to create a file, and it's going to be a .env file. This is the place where we're going to store our information for how to the URL to connect to our Mongo database. So Mongo URE equals, and then it's going to be a long string. I'm going to show you where to get it. So if you come into your browser again, you have that connect button here. The connect button is going to ask you, okay, where you want to connect. I want to connect from my application. So it's going to give you this URL. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to copy it, and we're going to go back to our code, and in the code you're going to paste it in here. So we're just going to make sure it's all in one line, and we just want the string. We don't need the these things here. So what we want is we want something like this. So we just want that part in it, and what you're going to do is you're going to replace the username password by what you had put when you created the database. In your if you go back in the browser, in database access, this is where you can find your access. You can edit if you want to change the password of the user, and then also, so when you go back into your editor, you can just put the username and the password, and then this information is going to be used to connect to the database. Now that we have our config ready, what we want to do is we want to initialize our database connection. So for that, we're going to start by importing OS, because we need to have to load this file, the .env file, in the environment in the app, so that we can initialize that connection. So we're going to say basedir equals os.path.absolute path, because we want a full path of os.path.dir, and then we're going to say of the current file. So file is a special variable that you have access, and it represents the file that you're in right now. So it's a give me the absolute path of the directory of that I am right now. So that's perfect. Now what we want is we want to initialize here an environment variable, so .env, which we're going to have to import. So import, not import from, flask.env import .env, so that we have that. And then when we have that, we want to use that variable to init the app. So we're going to say app here, and os.path.join. Oh, we're going to pass in the base there, and the .env here. And then when that's done, we're just going to initialize the config in the app. So for that, we do this. We do MongoDB settings. Oops, sorry. Equals os.getEnv, and then we pass. No, in fact, no, that's not. It's an object. So we want to pass in here an object, and we're gonna say, so the database is, let's call it a game service. The host is going to be os.getEnv, and then we pass the key that we put in our .env file. So it was mongo_ure, And then for the last one here, we want the port. So the port, we want to use the default one. So we say 27017. That's the default port for MongoDB. And then we can initialize our database by saying Mongo engine and passing in the app. So that's still going to be an import from Flask Mongo engine import Mongo engine. There we go. And now we have our database connection initialized, and we're going to be able to create a model and fetch information from and save information to the database. Now let's create the model. So for that, we're going to go into our game services here, and we're going to create a folder. We're going to call it models. This is going to be the object that represents the data that is stored in a database. So if we want to save this, we want to have an object that has a gamer tag field with the name, the value. But for now, we just want like the model and what type should it store. So we're going to create that folder here, models. Whenever you create a folder to be able for the import to work correctly, you need to create an __ init dot __ py. Okay, so it's __ init __ dot py. So that's kind of a from the way I understand it, it's kind of a namespacing, so it makes it so that models is now a namespace. You can put stuff in it and they're going to be executed, but for now, that's not really what we want to do. So what we want to do is we want to create a new file, player.py, which is going to represent the data for one particular player here. At the top, we're gonna, so this is gonna be linked to the database. So it's gonna be, what we're declaring here is the schema. It's the format of the data in the database. So and with that class, we're gonna be able to fetch and save information. So it needs to inherit from a certain type, like in Unity, when you wanna have an object that you can attach to a script that you want to be able to attach to an object, you make it inherit from mono behavior. It's the same thing here, but for databases. So from import Mongo engine as ME, that as ME just make it so we don't have to type Mongo engine every time. We just have to type ME. So that's kind of a shorthand, an alias as they call it. So player. Inheritance in Python is written like this. You say the name of the class, parenthesis, and then what does it inherit from. So for us, it's Mongo engine dot document here. There you go. So that's how you do inheritance in Python. And then we just have to declare the field that we want. So we want, let's say, to store the skins that the player has unlocked. So dot list field. And then we're going to say default. The default value is if I create a new object and I don't specify that field, what is the value? For us, it's empty, because whenever we create a player, that player probably does not have any skin yet. So it's going to be by default an empty string. Let's go with gamer tag. Gamer tag is going to be a string field. Required equals true. And then Steam ID, which should only be equal to me dot string field and required equals true. There it is. So Steam ID is also a string field. It's required because we want it to be specified whenever you create the player. So the field that you're going to be absolutely have to specify are gamer tag and Steam ID. But Steam ID has a little bit more specific usage. So we're going to say unique equals true. So that means that the Steam ID, two players cannot have the same Steam ID. Also, we have to make note that Boolean in Python take a capital letter at first. So true is like that and false is like that. Okay, now let's put another field, currency amount, which is going to be equal to an int field. And you can see when I type here, like there's a lot of type of field that you can actually have for that you can actually store. So we're going to say int field for us, and we're going to specify that the default is equals to 0, assuming that the player starts with no currency at all at the beginning. So There we go. We have specified our first model, and now we're going to see how we can interact with the database with this. Okay, now let's see how to save that. First of all, in the app.py game.services, we're going to need to put it here. Just after the slash here, just put it here so that it uses that database too. Now let's go back into app.py. Yeah, now we have that we did before. Now let's put an else here. So else, let's say the person didn't send the Steam ID that we were looking for here. Let's say we then create a new player. So we're going to do player equals player. And then we're going to pass the two required field that we put here. So gamer tag and IP ID. So gamer tag equals, for now, we're just going to hard code it. So you can hard code what you want. So I'll put mine. And the other one that is the required, we're going to put whatever you passed in here in the URL, which is in this variable. So there you go. So that way, this is going to create a new object player. So it's going to ask us to import it. So we can add it. It adds models.player, which is our namespace in here that we created. And then the only thing you have to do right now is save it. So you can call this save function on it. And there we go. The player will be in the database. But usually, since it's an API, whenever you create something, you want to return it to the client that asks you to create this. So what we're going to do is we're going to return JSONify of the player. Okay, so JSONify is still something we need to import. It's from Flask. So there you go. Put it right here. So you can import that way. From a namespace, you can import multiple things. So if in here I add model and I add player and an enemy, I could do import player, comma enemy. Yeah, we can remove that now because we don't need it anymore. So either if we pass in Steam ID, we're going to get this. Otherwise, we're going to get this. So let's confirm it. To test this, what we're going to do is we're going to test first with this Steam ID, and then we're going to send anything else so that we have we save something in the database. So for that, let's start our web service. So our web API. So let's go here and Python. So then, it gets here. Now let's go into Postman. In Postman, we're going to test with the whole URL for our service, which is /steamid. Let's go send. And we have the same message we had previously. But now, if we send anything else and we do send, boom, we have this type of format, which is our player class. So our player class is returned. The only thing that we don't have in our class that is added is this ID. So this ID is the unique ID in the database for that user. So let's go on MongoDB Atlas and see what it looks like in the database. So right here, if you go into database in the menu, you're going to have your project here. You do browse collection, and then here it is, game service player. And in there, you have exactly what we had in Postman. So you have an empty array for now because the player has no skin, the gamer tag that we set, and the Steam ID that we sent with the currency 20 because that's the default we set. So this is a pretty useful feature, having a database, because then the player can uninstall your game and then because he needs some space, and then play some other game, come back, and then boom, his data is still here in the database, so we can jump right back where it was before. So pretty useful. And there it is for our saving the player info into a database video. Again, this is pretty useful. We're going to be able to have the dedicated server pull that information, and the player, we're going to be able to save all information of what he alters in the world and everything. So it's going to be pretty useful. And yeah, I hope you liked it. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.